Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching fourth part of What If Naruto Lost His Memories. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
As Naruto opened his eyes again, his vision swam. As debris continued to fall from the sky, dust filled the air. It's always the explosions, damn Teme. After that thought, everything went dark. Guy was still standing, having flooded his body with chakra just moments before the explosion. As a result, he was able to withstand the shockwave. Both men were fortunate that the explosion occurred just around the corner. The masonry of the adjacent wall had deflected the majority of the blast away from them. He would not have noticed the signs of trouble and stopped if it hadn't been for his recent combat experience. Guy realized he wouldn't have made it through that bomb. Naruto, most likely, would not have either. When Anbu arrived, Naruto was still outside. They rushed him to the emergency room. He was fine, according to the medics, other than the shock from the blast. They advised him to rest for a day and to return if he had any problems. The Anbu instructed him to report to the Hokage's office as soon as he was released. Hinata arrived with the children just as the medics were about to leave. As Kushina fretted and Hizashi appeared concerned, she wrapped her husband in a tight hug. Naruto was perplexed as to how she had arrived so quickly. Every blast that someone sets off gets the attention of the entire village, Hinata said, seeing his confusion. The first thing I do with my Byakugan is check that location for family and friends. When I saw you down, I grabbed the kids and dashed over. Naruto gave a nod. He motioned for Kushina and Hizashi to come closer. He had never seen Kushina without a smile on her cute face before. Hinata relaxed her grip and invited the children into the family hug. They sat there for nearly a minute before someone came in and coughed lightly to get their attention. Tsunade grinned as she stood in the doorway. I'm sorry to ruin such a picture-perfect family moment, but I need to inspect the gaki, she chuckled. My father is not a gaki, Aunt Tsunade, Hizashi said softly. Tsunade's smile widened as the boy defended his father. Naruto appeared to be winning over his son. In any case, she continued, I need to put a treatment I've been working on for him to the test. Naruto caught her gaze. I've been trying to get you to come by here, but you never seem to overdo things like you used to. Guy hasn't been letting me overwork myself, Naruto chuckles. He will sometimes push me right up to the edge, but never over. Every day, that line gets a little closer. Anyway, I finished one jutsu that I wanted to try to work on those burns of yours. And, because I am the attending physician, you cannot leave or be released until I am finished. It would only take a few minutes and would at the very least reduce the scar tissue. Have you found anything that can repair the burnt side of your hair? Naruto inquired, hoping for the best. Nope, Tsunade said, shaking her head. Only one person has ever discovered a way to regenerate dead cells, and that person is Kabuto from Sound. He might still be alive at this point. I had considered. Tsunade came to a halt and looked at the children. I had hoped Furball could assist you, but since your body is healed and not attempting to heal any further, nothing else will happen on that front. Who's Furball? A muffled Kushina inquired, still clutching her father tightly in her arms. Hinata bit her lower lip as she looked at Naruto. Naruto could tell by her expression that she had never told the children about the Kyuubi. Furball is someone Daddy knows, he thought quickly. I've known him my entire life, but we're not really friends. He is the reason why some Konoha residents dislike Daddy. Oh, okay, Kushina said, not moving. Hazashi only raised one eyebrow and remained silent. He knew his father was hiding something there, but he hadn't exactly lied about it. Maybe grandfather knows who this furball is. As Tsunade placed Naruto on the exam table, the family hug came to an end. Before the green chakra faded, she made several hand passes over Naruto's face with her mystic palm technique. She then muttered under her breath and made a series of hand gestures before her hands glowed again. She started rubbing her hand over the thick scar tissue on Naruto's right cheek. After her hand passed, skin flaked off. She was finished in minutes and motioned Naruto to sit up. His face was still scarred on the left side, and burn scars on the right were visible, but they were noticeably reduced. "How does that feel, Naruto?" she inquired. "Weird. I can feel air on some of it." "What exactly did you do?" "I'll skip the medical terminology and give you a summary. I pushed chakra into the scar tissue to separate the dead cells near the surface from the healthy cells beneath. Then I stretched and reshaped the skin around some of the deeper burns to keep you from bleeding. I could only work with what was available, not regrow things as I had done with Lee years before. You'll never be beautiful, but at least that side of your face is less constricted. I don't think the heavy stuff will return, but I'll go over it again in a few weeks. That Anbu outside the room is getting restless, so you should report to Kakashi." Hinata smiled as she reached over and rubbed the area Tsunade had worked on. "It's soft there again." Naruto smiled at his wife and rose from his seat at the exam table. "Well, I guess I should go see what he wants. If an Anbu is kept waiting, it is probably important." "Mommy, can I stay with Aunt Tsunade today?" Kushina inquired. "I'm not going to get in her way." "Please?" Kushina finished her request with a cute pout. Hinata simply raised a brow and smiled. "I taught you that, kiddo. It has no effect on me. You should first consult with Aunt Tsunade." "I wouldn't mind," Tsunade said softly. "She's entertaining and makes me feel younger than I am. Besides, I never have to show her something more than once." "Hinata, we may need to talk about this little girl's future soon. It's almost time for the kids to decide whether or not to attend the academy." Hinata nodded, her gaze fixed on her daughter. Naruto hugged and kissed his wife and daughter before patting his son on the shoulder and saying, "Come on Hazashi, they're about to have girl talk. You are welcome to accompany me to see the Hokage." Hazashi only paused for a moment before thinking of girl talk and cooties and hurrying out with his father. When Naruto entered Kakashi's office, he had a solemn expression on his face. The Hokage motioned to an Anbu on guard, who quickly left. "This is important, Naruto, and not for children's ears. Are you certain you want Hazashi to hear these things?" "Well, he has been getting trained by his grandfather for a few years now and is second in line to lead the Hyuga," Naruto said, looking down at his son. "He previously threatened to beat me up if I hurt Hinata. He can hear it if it is not classified information." "Son, this is adult stuff Hokage-sama is about to discuss," Naruto said to Hazashi. "You can stay if you want to be a part of it. Otherwise, you must wait with the secretary outside." "I'll stay, father," Hazashi said immediately. When he heard the word, father, Naruto smiled. It was still overly polite in his opinion, but it was the closest he had gotten from Hazashi so far. "I figured since you're still in line as a candidate for Hokage, you should get back into the decision-making side of running things around here," Kakashi began. "I'm assuming you still want the job." "Honestly, the thought of it had not even occurred to me since my return," Naruto admitted. "I had wanted it and have not changed my mind about it. I just had other things to deal with first. As you know, I have had Anbu keeping an eye on you since you returned, Kakashi said, nodding. Naruto nodded, indicating that he was aware of the situation. Well, I've also had several in watch positions along the route you take every day. They'd be on the lookout for problems. No one had stopped near the wall where the explosive was, according to the person who watches the street where the bomb went off. The seal just appeared and exploded. Naruto smirked. Seals simply do not appear. Someone must draw and place them. That is correct, Kakashi replied with a nod. On that subject, I had a disturbing thought. Seals are inked and infused with chakra to become explosives. In the past, there was at least one ink user en route. Sigh. Naruto sat in silence, contemplating this. For Sai to learn ink jutsu, someone from route had to teach him. Another possibility was that Sai had not been as free of route as they had hoped and had remained a part of it, working against Konoha. A knock on the door cut him off in his tracks. You summoned me, Hokage-sama? As she walked in, a woman's voice said. Hello, Shiho. I'm not sure if you were introduced, Naruto. You were unable to attend the wedding, but Uzumaki Naruto, please meet Nara Shiho. She is the assistant director of ANBU's science department. Oh, you finally got your lazy butt to propose, huh? Naruto inquired. Shiho smiled slyly through her thick spectacles. Yes. It only took a nudge from his mother to increase the pressure, and he was desperate to get out of her house. He came to me because he had no idea how to function on his own. Of course, I would have accepted him, but it only took a few pauses at the right time while deciding for him to propose. We already have the daughter. In 7 months, we'll find out if he gets the son, Shiho beams. Congratulations on both, Naruto said with a smile. On to business, Kakashi said now. Shiho nodded and handed Kakashi a folder, saying, the residue of the seal ink shows it is similar to the type of ink used by root member Sai. It was made locally because certain ingredients are indigenous to the area. Operatives who attempted to trace the ink's path had little success. Even our Hyuga operative couldn't follow the drops of ink that were left behind. He can see larger ones and tell there are more, but not enough to pinpoint where it came from in the catacombs beneath Konoha. Which of the operatives? Hazashi spoke up after sitting silently until now. Shiho looked around and realized the boy had been in the room. Uma, she looked to Kakashi, who nodded yes. Saito Hyuga. He has good eyes, Hazashi said, nodding. Mine, on the other hand, are slightly better. Could I, father, try to find these traces they're looking for? As all eyes turned to Naruto, Kakashi raised an eyebrow. Do you believe you can do it, son? Naruto inquired. Father, yes. I'd need Saito to show me where to start looking and what to look for, but I think I can do it. Father, I want to assist you. I just got you back, and I don't think I want to lose you. Naruto patted his son's shoulder and smiled down at him. Nothing is certain in life, but I have no plans to leave anytime soon. The boy smiled briefly before returning to his impassive Hyuga expression. I want the boy to be safe, Kakashi said, nodding. Bring him to the bomb site in a covered wagon with your operative to assist him. I don't want word of his involvement to get past the people who need to know. Otherwise, he might become a target. Naruto, Hazashi, and Saito were soon sitting in a wagon pulled up to the bombing site. Both Hazashi and Saito sat in meditative poses, focusing their chakras into their eyes and activating their bloodline. Saito was the first to speak, directing Hazashi to the points he had noticed on the ground beneath the bomb. The boy responded that he could see those points and inquired about several smaller points, but Saito informed him that those came after the explosion. The residual chakra had different variations. Hazashi expressed his understanding once more. As Hazashi learned what he needed to look for, the two exchanged directions and distances to other points they could both see. When he had a good idea, he concentrated harder and allowed more chakra to flow into his eyes. Fainter traces became more visible as he began to tell Saito what he saw. Saito was astounded by the traces Hazashi's eyes were picking up. On each of Hazashi's points, he could barely make out something against the background. The residue was difficult to track even for the boy, but he got a break when he finally found the exit point. On the lichens about 10 meters away, he said. There's an ink drop there, and another about a meter down the hole on the underside of a brick. Saito couldn't see the drop on the lichen until he focused his attention on it and forced himself to strain before noticing a subtle difference between the drop of ink and the lichen's natural chakra. Finally, he relaxed so as not to strain his eyes, saying, "Yes, I see it. I passed over it several times but didn't notice it because of the plant's natural chakra. Thank you very much, Hazashi. I should be able to pick it up from there." Hazashi relaxed and let his Byakugan deactivate before collapsing in exhaustion. He'd never pushed himself that hard before, but seeing his father's proud smile made it all worthwhile. The father and son were soon back in Kakashi's office the following day. When the two sat down, the Hokage frowned. "I appreciate Hazashi's assistance in locating what he did. I don't think he should hear the outcome of following the trail. Please wait outside with my secretary, Hazashi." The dark-haired boy first looked at his father, but then obeyed Kakashi. Kakashi locked his gaze on Naruto. The Anbu team tracked the ink trails back through a network of previously unknown tunnels. A number of citizens were apprehended and transported to Ibiki. "I've got squads mapping out the rest of the tunnels now, but what I've found so far is disturbing. They discovered Sai. So he was the mastermind behind the bombings? Both yes and no. They found him, as I previously stated. But what happened to him was heinous. Anbu was forced to put him down. It's known as a lobotomy," Tsunade explained. "Butchery is a more accurate term. They cut into his brain and annihilated his personality. What remained of his mind was simple and willing to follow instructions. According to information Ibiki has already obtained, someone would draw out the explosive seal and bring it to Sai, who would then be instructed to use his ink jutsu to place it somewhere in Konoha." Kakashi smirked. "We had always assumed that the explosive notes were planted because we had never seen the seals before. Nothing like this had ever occurred to anyone. Tsunade, how long has he been like this? I'd have to guess before Root defected based on the age of the scar tissue. Sai had last been seen in public about 6 months prior. That would put this horror in the hands of Danzo. What kind of condition was he in otherwise?" Naruto couldn't help but shudder. Tsunade sighed and said, "All in all, he provided excellent care. People fed him and looked after his physical needs. He was clean, and his cell was comfortable enough for a cell." Kakashi lowered his gaze. "That guarantees them a painless death. I hope this puts an end to the bombings. Nonetheless, the cost is exorbitant." "Master, according to reports from Konoha, Uzumaki is alive and the bomb cell has been discovered. How many people were incarcerated in that cell?" Sasuke inquired. 7 if you count the bomber." Sasuke nodded and said, "Increase attacks on Konoha's forces until twice as many people are killed, then resume normal operations. Send back the heads as usual, but with notes in the mouth blaming the deaths on Uzumaki's reappearance." The minion was dispatched to carry out his orders. That leaves us with only one active cell reporting. Anbu had taken in the other 2 message cells, according to the previous report. I might have to revise my plans. I have to get Naruto out of Konoha. Sasuke assembled a team and dispatched them on a mission. Naruto spent the following week training in the Hyuga compound's training area after Guy and Lee had left for their deployment. He spent time each day with each of his children and Hinata, strengthening their bonds. After the most recent bombing, Kakashi announced the capture of the bomber cell, and everyone was relieved until the notes arrived revealing the deaths of the Konoha ninja. Politically, Kakashi suffered as a result of the deaths, but the majority of the ninja clans and families saw through Uchiha's ruse. The few who didn't were already opposed to Kakashi, so their opinions didn't hurt him in the long run. When word of Naruto's return spread, more minor countries dispatched emissaries. For the first time in years, Konoha communicated with many of them in small amounts. Naruto had long been regarded as a national hero by both Wave and Spring. The news that the Sound was to blame for his disappearance prompted them to renew their alliances with Konoha and expel the Uchiha's minions from their lands. The first issue was the emissary from the Demon Country. He demanded a private meeting with Naruto. I've been tasked with delivering a personal letter from Priestess Shion to Uzumaki Naruto's hand. I may not give it to anyone else. After that, I'll be able to proceed with any negotiations with Konoha, he was adamant. He was allowed to present the sealed letter for chakra to Naruto after a brief examination. While the scarred man was surprised to receive the letter, the contents surprised him even more. Shion had requested and invited Naruto to visit the Demon Country and his daughter, Makomi. Shion had kept her word that she would remain silent about her daughter's paternity, but when word came that he was alive, the 10-year-old had asked to meet him. Naruto sat stunned as Hinata took the letter from his grasp and read it for herself. Hinata was upset because she had not been informed of the possibility of having a daughter in the past. This prompted a lengthy explanation of Naruto's mission to the Demon Country when he was 15 years old. Fortunately, Hinata was more understanding as his story unfolded because it happened prior to their relationship. She eventually stated that she intended to take the entire family to Demon Country if Naruto was to survive. If Naruto had another child, her children would meet their half-brother. She would also put a stop to any further poaching on her man. As the latest cycle of forces returned from the border regions, expectations were high in Konoha. Over the course of a few days, dozens of ninja had made their way home. 4 masked ninja came to a halt just outside the village gates and removed their masks. Each mask resembled a different colored kitsune. The quartet then removed their masks before walking the final distance to the gate. The leader checked them in at the gate, while the tallest wore sunglasses. The other two, a strawberry blonde woman and a spiky-haired man an inch shorter than she, remained silent as the group made their way to the hospital for their official checkup. The examination went smoothly, and the tallest man nodded to the others before turning down another street. "See you in a few days for training, Ebisu," the leader said. "Yeah. I'm looking forward to it, Iruka," Ebisu said sarcastically. "I hope Konohamaru and Moegi heard correctly. I have to get home to my wife." The remaining 3 made their way to the clan districts to see if the rumor they had heard was true. Naruto was in the smithy showing something to Neji and Tenten when a Hyuga approached the door and leaned in. "Please excuse my interruption. Someone is looking for you, Naruto, at the Uzumaki compound's gates. Hinata-sama was in the middle of a training session when I asked if you could look after them." Naruto grinned. He had persuaded a few members of the Hyuga branch family to stop calling him Zuma, but he knew he would never persuade them to stop calling Hinata that. "Akashatsu, I'll be right there." "Thank you very much." Naruto approached the gate and opened it, revealing 3 older but familiar faces. When all 3 of them looked shocked before yelling greetings and attempting to hug the man at the same time, he smiled. Iruka, Konohamaru, Moegi, it's good to see all of you again, Naruto said softly as he was hugged and pounded on the back in friendly greeting. Come on in, he said as he led them inside. I'm still getting used to the place, but you're all welcome to come here at any time. Iruka smiled sadly at Naruto's appearance, but he could tell the younger man wasn't bothered by it. How are things going, Naruto? He inquired. Naruto smiled and returned his gaze. Better than I could have imagined a few months ago. Hinata and her team tracked me down in the mountains, in an isolated valley where Sasuke had stashed me. After destroying Konoha, intelligence believes he was saving me for something big. The biggest surprise of all was discovering that I had a family waiting for me. But, in my opinion, being shocked is a good thing. Hinata informs me that you and Anko have finally married and have 2 sons. Iruka blushed and smiled, she definitely drew me in. I may have been a little hasty, but I never looked back. Anko lowered her gaze to her longtime friend and soon-to-be husband. Iruka-kun, you've been tying me up since we were teenagers. It's time to man up and be a man. As Iruka proposed, the snake holding him seemed to chuckle. Naruto laughed as Iruka told him that marriage had forced Anko to tone down her performance. She was a full jonin who had taken over the academy's kunoichi training. Because the kunoichi were now in charge of the majority of the money-making missions, they needed to be a capable force on their own, and Anko assured them that they would be. The Amino boys were already spending their days with their mother at the academy learning to be ninjas. Konohamaru and Moegi were seeing each other, but nothing more formal than an engagement had resulted. Both had been devastated by Udon's death and desired vengeance before moving on with their lives. They had been waiting for the war with Sound to be over, but things were not looking good. Team Kitsune took up the majority of their time both on and off mission, so no other planning was done. And how about you, Naruto? Iruka inquired. Do you have any future plans? So, I trained with Guy and Lee until they left for the war zone. In terms of abilities and chakra control, I'm back up to about Genin level. I'm now focusing my evening meditation on the ceilings, which is helping. My visitor has been quiet since my chakra was opened, but I don't think he's finished trying to escape yet. He appears to be biding his time. He's been feeling strange lately, but I'm not going in there to talk to him just yet. Overall, I should be able to resume my ninja training in about a month. Moegi had been relatively quiet up until this point. Naruto, perhaps? Could you please do me a favor? Naruto turned to face the woman, taking her cue to continue. I was hoping for an opportunity like this. She turned to face Konohamaru and knelt on the ground in front of him. Konohamaru, I know you asked me to marry you years ago, but I asked if we could postpone the wedding until the right time came. This, I believe, is a sign that the time has come. If you still want me to marry you, I will do so at any time. Moegi was lifted to her feet by Konohamaru, who smiled. I was hoping for the same thing. Having Big Bro back is also a good sign for me. But, just to be clear, Moegi, will you marry me? Yes, I will, Moegi said as he hugged Konohamaru tightly. 2 days later, the honorable grandson and his bride were married in front of a small group of close friends. The other grandson of the third and his mother Kurenai, the Uzumaki, Naruto, Hinata and their children, Iruka and Anko, Ebisu with his wife, and Udon's parents were among the guests. After the newlyweds had some private time, the announcement would be made to the entire village later that week. Following the couple's small celebration, Konohamaru and Moegi requested to see Naruto in private with Kakashi, Iruka, and Ebisu. The meeting was held in Kakashi's office. Moegi got things started. As you are all aware, Hokage-sama is against putting women in the lines against sound. The only reason he has allowed this to continue is because I keep my identity hidden. I requested that I be placed on reserve status because I am now married and want to start a family. As I am Earth Kitsune, this will leave the team short-handed. But I begged Hokage-sama to let Naruto take my place on the team, which had been formed to honor his memory. If everyone agrees, it will happen. Iruka nodded his agreement as Ebisu stroked his chin slowly. Konohamaru simply hugged his wife, having already agreed to her plan. Kakashi turned to look at Naruto to see what he thought. I would be honored to do it if you all want me, Naruto said, bowing to Moegi and Konohamaru. Ebisu kept rubbing his chin but eventually spoke up, I need a condition. Iruka as a water kitsune because it is the best fit for him. The same goes for Konohamaru as fire kitsune. Because earth was the best fit for Moegi, I chose air because it was the only option left. However, air suits Naruto better than it does me because he is one of Konoha's few wind chakra users. I'll give him air while keeping earth for myself. Given that we do not reveal which mask is which, the switch will remain a mystery for some time. Naruto looked at Ebisu and realized he had only thought of him as a closet pervert. That title did not do justice to the kind man who had been Konohamaru's tutor and Jonin-sensei for many years. Ebisu technically outranked everyone in the room except Kakashi, but the man knew he wasn't a better ninja. The students had outdone the teacher, and he was well aware of it. The modified Team Kitsune was formed after all parties agreed. The gate guards noticed a snake approaching with a burden. The creature teleported itself 50 yards away from the gate, and its bundle fell to the ground. One guard frowned and spoke quietly, Uchiha and his pets were damned. Torturing us all with the heads of our losses in this manner. Before opening the package, it was quickly inspected for bombs and traps. No guard recognized the heads within, but a note addressed to the Dobi suggested that he might be able to identify them. Naruto and Hinata responded quickly to the summons to the Hokage Tower. Neither of them understood why until Kakashi led them to the Anbu level. Kakashi spoke softly, nobody recognized these heads, Naruto. The note stated that you should be informed. Naruto just stared in shock as the box was opened before falling to his knees and lowering his head. Hinata was on the verge of vomiting. She was familiar with these unfortunate victims. Kama-san and his young apprentice are their names. They are the people who looked after Naruto after he was taken from us. Naruto's voice was deepened by tears, they were like family to me. They were extremely valuable to me. That Cretan has now taken them away. Naruto drew a kunai and slashed open his hand. By heaven, earth, and hell, I swear that I will make Uchiha Sasuke pay for his crimes. He ran through the hand seals and dropped the hand to the ground. A small toad emerged from the smoke. Carry this message to the Sound Village and Sasuke, Gamadenrai. Tell him that he has sown the wind and will now reap the whirlwind. Until this morning, Naruto had been content to train at the limit Sky had set for him. Seeing the heads of Kama and, little brother, Kama's other apprentice, had enraged him. He went to his training area and made a well-known hand sign. Taiju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, multi-shadow clone technique, he said quietly as he gathered a large amount of chakra. The chakra smoke erupted. As the smoke dissipated, hundreds of shadow clones appeared in neat rows. He stood out among the clones, his face solemn. Every angry and enraged face he saw mirrored his own. He aimed his arms at various people. Tree climbing, water walking, leaf cutting, and hand seals are all activities. Go. As Naruto began his daily physical training, the clones moved off with purpose to their assigned tasks. Hinata remained silent as her husband began punching the training dummy. She could see the agony he was attempting to hide. She just sat there for hours on end. She noticed clones slowly dispersing themselves along the clearing's edge, and his movements became more erratic. Even though he could barely lift his arms, Naruto never stopped. As the darkness fell, Naruto finally fell to his knees and cried out to the heavens, backed by enough chakra to echo across Konoha. Hinata approached him. She knelt behind her husband and hugged him tightly. He wept and leaned forward, letting go of his pain. Naruto's tears did not stop for several minutes. Jiraiya said, lifting his head to look to the sky, that he believed one day the people of the world could live in peace with one another. That if we understood each other, we'd be fine. But there was no reason for Sasuke's actions other than to make me suffer. Kama never did anything but look after me. I'm not sure why he would want to order it. My mind will not bend that far to make an excuse. I said I would end him, but now I see I must also end his works. If they can kill innocent people to make a point, sound is a disease on the face of the earth. No longer. I hope Jiraiya understands what I'm doing and forgives me for betraying his peace dream. But I see now that peace comes at a cost. Hinata, this isn't about vengeance. It is about standing up for what is right and just and doing what is necessary. There will be no more waiting for another attack. It's no longer enough to keep them at bay and hope for the best. We must put a stop to him in some way. But I lack the necessary strength. Hinata leaned against her husband's back. Then, beloved, I will add my strength to yours. They became aware of motion at the clearing's edges. Tsunade stood beside the children. Behind them are Kakashi, Neji, and Tenten, Konohamaru and Moegi, Iruka, Ebisu, Shikamaru, Hiashi, Hanabi, and a number of other Hyuga. Many others she didn't know stood as well, but rank after rank of ninja had gathered to hear the cry. Too many people recognized his pain, and few could ignore it. They also felt something stirring within them, something that had been dormant since Naruto first vanished. The Konoha ninja had been in shock for 5 long years. Shock at the losses caused by Root's betrayal. Shock that Tsunade had been cut down, crippled, and abandoned by someone who had threatened to destroy them while offering the chance to betray everything they believed in order to live longer. The shock of the ambushes and deaths that occurred at the start of the current war. The bombings and terror attacks have left people in shock. Shock from fighting a losing war against a smaller power that they should have won. They had lost the focus and determination that had made Konoha great. They had spent the previous 5 years reacting to what had been done to them rather than acting to put an end to the events. But now they could hear Naruto saying what needed to be said. Bringing their attention to a reality they did not want to see. Giving voice to what had been nagging at the edges of their minds silently. He still carried the will of fire within him, which allowed him to see clearly. People had already changed as a result of his return. He had left some of his fire with Hinata, and she had assisted in changing the Hyuga, but it was insufficient. Tsunade's life had been saved by Hinata and the children. Everyone knew that if the Uzumaki children had not been alive to give her a reason to live, Tsunade would have died. Talk of Neji emerging from his self-hatred had now spread throughout the ranks. Tenten was no longer hiding inside her house. Lee and Guy burned once more with their youth flames, but this time they didn't shout it to the entire village. Spies had been apprehended, and the bomber had been apprehended. Allies were returning to Konoha. Hope had returned. However, this was insufficient. His words now touched the spark that remained in each of them. That small spark was the only reason they hung on and fought the sound. Tsunade was not far off when she referred to Naruto as the soul of the village. That strange ability he possessed to improve people fanned those sparks into flames once more. I will contribute my strength as well, Naruto, Tsunade finally said after a long silence. As will I, Neji said. And I, Tenten added with a smile. More people said they would do the same. Naruto returned Hinata's shock at what was happening. They stood up as Kakashi stepped closer and raised his hand for silence. It appears that you are overlooking one minor detail, Naruto. You're not a ninja yet again. I was going to give you this later, but now seems like a better time. Kakashi took out an orange cloth covered in a battered metal plate. The cloth is new, but the symbol is the same as what your father was wearing when he faced the Kyuubi. I believe he would agree to my giving it to you. Uzumaki Naruto, Namikaze Minato's son. I hereby reinstate you as a ninja of Konoha no Sato. Naruto received the headband from Kakashi. Naruto almost reverently accepted the headband. His father's headband had become his own. He brought it up to his brow and tied it behind his head. Thank you, Hokage-sama, he said as he bowed to Kakashi. Someone yelled from the back of the crowd, all right, Naruto. Excellent work. The assembled ninja began to cheer at that signal. As the cheers grew louder, a chant of Naruto began. As things seemed to spiral out of control, people rushed up to Naruto and Hinata, and he was lifted onto the shoulders of the ninja and carried back toward town. Hinata came next, followed by Tsunade and the children. Kushina exclaimed, "Yay, Daddy!" And Hazashi smiled, but in a Hyuga way. In town, a party erupted and lasted well into the night. Years later, that night was remembered as the turning point in the war against the sound. All Kitsune check in, Water Kitsune said quietly. This is Earth. Light a fire here. There's air here. Alright, people. It went exactly as planned. We get in, hit them, and leave. This has to be a clean operation, with no alerts and no survivors. Konoha launched an attack against the forces of sound a month after the night. Team Kitsune launched the first attack on the command post for the sound's line of defense. They struck without warning, said nothing, and took no prisoners. The team seized the radios used by the Sound Jonin to relay orders, as well as the map depicting the current forces arrayed against the Leaf. They retreated behind the lines while a general assault was launched in a dozen locations along the line. Calls for assistance and reinforcements were received and responded to by a team, which issued instructions that threw the entire line into disarray. Sound suffered numerous casualties, whereas Leaf suffered only minor losses. In the battles that followed, Team Kitsune seemed to be everywhere. The Sound's strong points were overrun, bypassed, and cut off as the Leaf Ninja fought with vigor that most of the Sound Ninja had never seen. How come Konoha broke our forward lines? Sasuke cursed his messenger. They haven't successfully launched a frontal attack on us in over 2 years. The messenger remained kneeling and became extremely concerned about his head. He was the most disposable member of the messenger corps, and he was the last to deliver any bad news to their leader. The messengers who brought bad news to the Otokage were notorious for having short careers. The messenger had to continue with his message. Indeed, Otokage-sama. Survivors reported widespread confusion and that Leaf attacked in multiple locations at the same time. Units were told to stay put because reinforcements were on their way over the radio. When no help arrived, many were killed where they stood. One retreating squad passed through the headquarters area and reported that the entire command post staff was dead, as were the radios. As he yelled for one of his generals, Sasuke flushed. How could we have been so unprepared for an attack? We had no warning that Leaf would attack us, Otokage-sama, the general blustered. Normally, we have up to a week before launching an attack. This one came as a complete surprise. The recent loss of the majority of our spy network in Leaf has reduced our intelligence on their movements. The general said nothing else because his head was no longer on his shoulders. The last living Uchiha remembered the message he received after killing the old blacksmith. He had dismissed the message as Naruto's bluster, but now he was not so sure. As he gave his orders, Sasuke growled. Return fresh troops to the front lines. I demand that double-strength battalions be dispatched immediately to crush this advance. My negotiations with Rock, Cloud, and Mist were going well because Leaf couldn't do anything against us. They were almost ready to make Otto a cage-level village rather than Konoha. This shattered my plans. I want to kill any Leaf ninja I come across. The reinforcements from Sound rushed toward the Land of Fire. They would normally be more cautious, but the Otokage had said immediately. They raced across a newly built bridge over the gorge downstream from the Valley of the End into territory they had controlled for the majority of the war. They were certain that they would soon be killing Leaf ninja and raiding civilian villages in search of loot and other more tangible treasures. The majority of the Sound Force had crossed the bridge when it suddenly blew up. The force came to a halt to see if anyone on board had survived. The scouts ahead reported a single Leaf ninja in a kitsune mask holding a truce flag in the road ahead. The force commander confidently strode up to the waiting ninja. Are you ready to surrender, Leaf scum? He asked haughtily. Actually, I came here to give all of you a chance to surrender, the masked ninja said calmly. The commander threatened, we're going to burn your village and salt the ashes, Leaf scum. So you're not going to give up? I figured I'd at least give you a chance to save your ninja, the masked ninja said as he waved the truce flag. I suppose we'll have to fight today. If you thought blowing up that bridge would keep us out, you should have done it before this force arrived, laughed the Sound commander. Oh, that wasn't done to keep you out. It was done to keep you in, Air Kitsune softly explained. Over 100 Leaf ninja formed an arc around the Sound forces. As their hands flew through hand signs ending in the tiger, they each bit down on a food pill. They all raised their hands to their mouths and yelled, Kaden, Gokakyu no Jutsu. Fire style, Grand Fireball technique. The fireballs merged into a solid wall of flames around the Sound, but the majority of the Sound ninja jumped back. This did, however, bring them closer together. When dozens of Sand ninja wielding metal battle fans leapt into the air behind them, the Leaf ninja held the technique. They swung their fans while shouting Futen, Daitapa, wind style, great breakthrough. As the winds bore it along, the wind techniques pushed into the wall of orange fire in front of it, and the fire rose up in blue flame. The flames engulfed the Sound forces as they swept over them and out into the gorge air. Nothing survived in the forested area between the Konoha ninja and the cliff. On the far cliff, the few Sound troops turned and fled. Hell's firestorm, mass jutsu. You think you're successful, don't you? Air Kitsune asked the stunned Sound leader before knocking him out. As the shadow clone dispersed, Air Kitsune vanished in a cloud of chakra smoke. Sasuke was enraged. His village had lost more troops in less than a week than it had during the entire war with Konoha. The Sound army had been completely driven out of the Land of Fire. As the envoys from the 3 major villages left, his plans to become a major player in the ninja world vanished. That damned blonde-haired idiot was entirely to blame. If he hadn't returned, Rock, Cloud, and Mist would have recognized him as Otokage. According to survivors at the bridge, Sand Ninja aided the Leaf. Individual teams returning from missions were attacked by ninja from the waterfall, snow, and even the small haze village. Grass and rain bowed as allies to sound, but their ninja were conspicuously absent from the casualty lists his generals had given him. He raged for hours before realizing he had set himself up for defeat by not killing the Dobi when he had the fool at his mercy. He would have already won this war if he had killed Naruto instead of hiding him away in some foolish attempt to show his mercy. He was well aware that Konoha's new alliance with the sand and the smaller villages was as fragile as a single breath. It would fade away after Naruto's final breath. He needed to figure out how to get Naruto back within his grasp. The Dobi would not put himself out there again now that he had been humbled. Naruto needed a reason to walk into a trap he was well aware of. Sasuke smiled. He only needed the right bait to entice Naruto. He already possessed that skill. Messenger! Sasuke yelled. Kakashi and Shikamaru examined the main map. Have you seen Hokage-sama? There will be no more opportunities for large-scale engagement with sound forces in the future. We'll have to fight them in smaller groups. Our massed attacks dealt significant damage to their numbers, but only knocked out a large number of low-level ninja, primarily Genin and Chunin-level ninja. We must assume that their best forces were back in their main village, as well as the old bunkers Orochimaru had as the original sound. Kakashi gave a nod. Deep scouting missions revealed that Sasuke had constructed a central village for sound. The old sprawling bunkers preferred by Orochimaru did not suit the Uchiha's taste or ego. The new sound village appeared to be an attempt to be better and grander than Leaf. His private quarters were easily twice the size of the Hokage Tower. Shikamaru had spent hours thinking about it before coming up with a theory that fit the facts. Sasuke had no intention of simply becoming a Kage. He aspired to become emperor. Sasuke desired more than just to destroy Konoha. He desired to take Konoha's place on the world stage and demonstrate the Uchiha's power. After removing Tsunade from the equation, he could have destroyed Konoha in weeks. The chaos and infighting that followed that act had been brutal, and Kakashi had won the Hokage seat by a razor-thin margin. That, however, would not have suited Uchiha's ego. He wanted to beat Konoha face to face, and he wanted the rest of the world to see it. If he could persuade Konoha Ninja to defect and join his sound village, he would appear to be a man leader. His ego desired that the other major powers acknowledge that Uchiha was destroyed out of fear, not because they were traitors. Shikamaru also reasoned that if Konoha fell, it would be insufficient for Uchiha. He'd keep going and never be satisfied. He'd keep looking for a reason, an excuse to never admit he had nothing once he'd accomplished his goal and discovered it to be a hollow thing, much like his vengeance on Itachi. So, Shikamaru, what do we need to do? Are you our best strategist? Kakashi inquired. We had a huge boost in morale due to 2 major victories, but that will fade quickly if we are forced back into an attrition stance with sound, Shikamaru frowned. We must break their will, just as they nearly broke ours. We must continue to raid the sound's external resources. The rice field country was well suited for food production, but it lacked other basic necessities. In terms of war supplies, it imports the majority of what it requires. If we can break their alliance with rain, they will lose technical support, and removing grass will cut off their land route to Iwa and its raw materials. Spring country might be able to blockade its sea access, but due to Spring's small navy, this would take months. Kakashi gave a nod. He agreed with Shikamaru's assessment of the situation. Perhaps a series of strikes into rice country to hit one or more of Orochimaru's old bunkers. At least 2 of them have solid locations. Let Guy and Lee lead one attack while Team Kitsune leads the other. Naruto's skills are returning at a faster rate since we returned him to active duty. In less than a month, he has returned to roughly a high Chunin level of ability. His motivation has increased since that day, but he is missing a piece of himself. Tsunade would be able to figure it out well enough, but she is on that personal mission to Sand. You let her go on, Shikamaru nodded. Tsunade wanted to go on that mission, Kakashi said with a smile. When she returns, it will be a surprise. And Anbu interrupted the conversation. Hokage-sama, we have received a message from Uchiha Sasuke addressed to Uzumaki Naruto. This is bad, Kakashi said, frowning. Why would Sasuke want to send a message to Naruto directly? As Kakashi made a quick decision, Shikamaru rubbed his chin in thought. I'll send for Naruto. It will most likely take him more than a day to return to Konoha from where he is now. Naruto was irritated that he had to return to Konoha without warning. All Kakashi's hound said was that it was critical. He wanted to get out there and finish Sasuke and his sound, but the enormity of the task still baffled him. The smell of the battle near the bridge still woke him up at night. Things he had dismissed as a ninja before Sasuke had hidden him away were bothering him now. Even though his memories of his ninja days were as fresh as his civilian ones, 8 years as a civilian were difficult to shake. The duality had not faded as quickly as he had hoped. He craved the peace and security he'd felt in the forge, but he knew he couldn't have it any longer. Sasuke would never let him live peacefully. He needed time to clear his mind and regain his focus. He remembered his sage training and knew he needed to go through it again. He'd be fine once he got in touch with himself. Naruto followed the hound through the gates while hiding his air kitsune mask. A pair of Anbu were waiting for him. Uzumaki-san, we'll take you directly to Hokage-sama. Naruto was asked to wait in the office while Kakashi dispatched a few people. Within 15 minutes, the remaining members of the Konoha 11 had arrived at the office. Hinata sat beside him, while Hiyashi stood back with Neji and Tenten. Lee, Guy, and Yamato were still engaged in combat. Kiba sat sullenly on the far side of the room, while Naruto nodded to Shino and Kurenai. Shikamaru and Kakashi entered the room. Even through his mask, Kakashi appeared to be upset. I have some bad news. Uchiha has issued you a personal challenge, Naruto. He wants you to meet him in 2 weeks in the Valley of the End. If Uchiha thinks I'll walk into a trap, he can go suck snakes, Naruto growled. I feel the same way, Kakashi sighed, but he included something else in the note. Kakashi displayed a lock of pink hair. He said if you don't show up, he'll send us the rest of her in pieces. The actions of that Uchiha enraged Naruto once more. He needed to make numerous plans. At the valley, he had to be prepared to fight for his life. Unfortunately, he was not in peak condition. After his long time as a civilian, Sasuke would have him outclassed at every turn. In addition, there was the offensive. As a member of Team Kitsune, he participated in the planned strikes. All of those plans would have to be altered. The team could get by with 3 or a temporary spare, but he despised having to leave the field. Then there was the last item on his to-do list. He needed to speak with Hinata privately. He needed her to be okay with any decision to confront the Uchiha. It was made worse by the fact that Sakura was involved. He adored his wife, but there is always something about a person's first crush that resonates with them. He had been chasing Sakura for years with no success. Then there was the betrothal to Hinata and getting to know her before falling in love with the woman who loved him so much that she gave up everything. For a brief moment, he wished to be free of everything. To wake up in his loft at the forge and discover it was all a sake dream. But he knew better than to hope for such a thing. Naruto returned his gaze to Kakashi. In a fair fight, he knows I can't beat him. He's doing this to permanently break us. If I fight and die, the fragile alliance against him will fall apart. If I refuse to fight, he will boast that I was too afraid to face him, and the alliance will doubt our ability to win. But he is mistaken. He overlooked a few points that have since changed. He believes I am the Naruto he knew 8 years ago. I am now more than that. I don't need to be stronger than him. I just need to be better. I'm also going to do something he always forgets when we fight. He expects me to want and fight a fair duel, but he appears to be missing the point. I'm a ninja, and ninjas don't play by the rules. The meeting would have continued, but Naruto walked over to Hinata, picked her up, and walked away. Kakashi was surprised, but he kept it to himself. He requested suggestions for how to ensure that getting to and from the valley was possible. Naruto dashed along the rooftops until he arrived at the training grounds. He then proceeded to the memorial stone and 3 posts. They were different from previous posts, but they were in the same places. He silently set Hinata back on her feet and gazed at her lovely face. As she looked at her husband, tears streamed down her cheeks. She was confident he would accept the challenge. He didn't have a choice. She was waiting for him to tell her that he was doing it because he loved Sakura. Instead, she was enveloped in a hug. Hinata-chan, I'm not sure if I can defeat the Uchiha. I almost wish I hadn't been discovered. That, however, would not be fair to you or the children. I'm glad they had the opportunity to meet their father, Naruto stated in hushed tones. Hinata raised her eyes to her husband. You appear to be giving up. You, on the other hand, never give up. No, not so much giving up as being realistic. I've got a slim chance, but that's all. I am not yet ready to access the nature chakra. I don't have enough faith in the Kyuubi to risk using its chakra. In terms of ability, I might be able to pass for a raw Jonin as I am now, but that is all. That works against me, according to the Uchiha. You keep referring to him as the Uchiha. Why is this the case? Because Sasuke is the name of someone I once considered to be one of my most precious people. He is not that man he has become. This man is simply another power-hungry Uchiha. Like the rest of his cursed family. Itachi should have finished the job years ago, sparing the world the trouble. It is now up to me. Are you doing it for Sakura? I must admit that she is a contributing factor, but not the primary one. Uchiha used her to force me into this fight because he knows I can't just abandon her to be killed like that. She might even be on his side in this, and he's calling a bluff. I won't know until the fight is over. Hinata lowered her gaze. I was afraid you'd run away to reclaim your lost love. That I'd be pushed aside. With a hand under her chin, Naruto gently lifted her head. My long-lost love is currently in my arms. My friend has won a duel. My wife, I understand the distinction. Kakashi had made no plans a half hour after Naruto had left. When Naruto and Hinata returned, he was about to dismiss everyone. Next time, give me some warning, Kakashi said to Naruto. Naruto gave a sheepish grin. Sorry for the delay. I needed to speak with my wife first. All married men should be aware that no dueling is permitted without the wife's permission. The married men laughed when they heard that. Hinata harumphed amusingly and smacked him on the arm. For this fight, I have a few ideas. Let's meet tomorrow morning after I've worked through a few of them in my head, Shikamaru, Naruto said. The Nara heir nodded, and the gathering began to disband. So I assume the answer is yes, Kakashi said through his mask. I don't have a choice, Kakashi. But I have a few conditions for the response. The response to his challenge made Uchiha Sasuke chuckle. The fool thinks bringing seconds and a medic will save his life. He might even be generous and agree to the condition that Sakura accompany the party from Konoha regardless of who wins or loses. He would allow it because the woman was no longer useful to him. Konoha would never last more than 6 months after defeating Naruto. Naruto was busier than he'd ever been. While he was in the Hyuga library, he had his clones practice wind chakra. He was with another group, poring over scroll after scroll of intelligence on General Uchiha and Sasuke's fighting style, hoping to find something useful. He was taking shorthand notes as he went. Uchiha felt most at ease using lightning attacks based on the Chidori. He preferred to use his sword as his primary weapon. That had remained constant over the years. According to battle reports, the Uchiha had become more well-rounded, but he hadn't been seen in a fight in over 4 years. He could be rusty from sitting around as a ruler. He would not allow himself to become weak, but he was unlikely to be in peak condition. Remove the sword from the game. Put a stop to his lightning-based attacks. Play against his ego and make him lose his cool, Naruto reasoned as he reread his notes. As another clone wore itself out and the training memories filtered into Naruto, he leaned back. This is more difficult than I anticipated. The clones are much weaker with only a small amount of Kyuubi chakra added in on purpose. But I don't have a choice. Naruto rubbed his chin as Neji approached him. Naruto raised his head and smiled at the man who had become his best friend since his return. How are things going, Naruto? The man inquired. Slow down, Neji. Extremely slow. My plans keep falling through the cracks. I'm still without a counter for both his sword and his Chidori variants. So far, the only good news is that my toad has returned from his mountain mission, Naruto responded. Neji frowned as he picked up the stack of notes to examine them. Naruto, what language are you writing in here? I only understand about half of what you wrote. Naruto laughed. Oh, yes. It's simply something Kama taught me. He claimed it was the Smith's secret language. Some of it is normal, but there are a few oddities that are related to smithing. It is less difficult for me than regular writing. Neji pointed to a group of people. Naruto, I've seen some of these before. After you vanished, your father's scrolls were discovered. As part of the betrothal agreement, Hinata granted the Hyuga access to them. We couldn't understand them. There was an entire section of writing that was like this. Naruto reflected. His memories of the scrolls were hazy because he had only read them once and didn't understand most of them. He had hoped to learn the Hiraishin after receiving them, but he couldn't because he couldn't read the instructions. It suddenly clicked. Hiyashi stated that his father was the son of a weaponsmith. As a security measure, his father must have written all of his scrolls in the smith's dialect. He returned to the scrolls and took out the ones written by his father. After inspecting them, he smiled up at Neji. Is it anything good? Neji inquired. Oh, yes, Naruto said. The formula for making special kunai, how to make seals, and even hand signs, everything is documented here. I believe we've found our limit. Naruto was fortunate that the Hyuga Sealmaster agreed to assist him. The old man had always taken strange pride in his ability to flawlessly craft the caged bird seal. However, he quickly discovered that his ability as a sealmaster was several steps below that of the fourth. Namikaze Minato had created a work of art that he could barely understand but was able to replicate after a week. He had to recreate the seal for the kunai in Naruto's blood so that it could function as a summons for Naruto himself. The old man realized he could spend the rest of his life tearing apart the main seal and still not comprehend everything. While creation was difficult, duplication was much simpler. While the sealmaster worked on the seal, Neji and Naruto worked in the forge. On the first day, they had tried dozens of times to get the kunai right. They failed each time. The only original they had appeared to be the only one until Tenten slapped both of them across the face and pointed out a mistake they were making. The special kunai resembled a miniature sword rather than a kunai. Both men shook their heads as they realized what she had said. Naruto hung his head in shame for making such a simple error, but Tenten reminded him that he was under a lot of stress. They were only able to make a dozen before running out of materials. Clones of Naruto practiced the hand seals for the Hiraishin in the training fields. The days flew by faster than anyone in Konoha had hoped, but 3 days before the scheduled duel, everything was ready to put to the test. Naruto took slow breaths as he tossed newly made kunai and seals to various parts of the training field. The decisive moment had arrived. His clones had spent years practicing the hand gestures he was about to make. The scarred man flashed through the signs, channeling his chakra before disappearing in a flash of yellow light and reappearing across the training field. When pain ravaged his entire body and he collapsed, he began to smile and wave. 2 days later, Naruto sat in the Hokage's office, surrounded by Kakashi and Hinata. He was trying to figure out what the sealmaster had discovered in his latest analysis. The portion of the seal identifying who would be teleported was directly copied from the original. It was attempting to move Minato rather than Naruto. Only because Naruto was his son had he been able to survive the attempt. The man was busy repairing the seal so that it could read Naruto, but he doubted he could do it quickly enough for more than a few seals. Tsunade hobbled into the room, having just returned from Suna. "Gaki, you nearly killed yourself with that stunt. I swear you must enjoy attempting the impossible and succeeding. You almost didn't this time." Naruto sighed and said, "Ba-chan, we were desperate. I can't beat him in my current state, and this only makes matters worse. I have 24 hours before we have to leave for the valley. You were able to repair my body, but that does not solve my problem. I'm working on a counter for the sword. His lightning and fire jutsu will continue to be a problem. Hand to hand, I believe I can match him for a short time. We needed a competitive advantage. You'll get one. If you don't, Naruto, you'll make one. This time, it is the Uchiha who is being foolish. He expects the Naruto he remembers. He will discover something unexpected. Last but not least, I'll be the medic alongside you." Naruto appeared stunned. "However, Ba-chan, your leg." Tsunade grinned, "Don't be concerned about my leg. Who will be your backup?" Kakashi rose to his feet, "I am." "I'm not giving him a choice in the matter either. So it could be the Hokage's final act. Past, present, and possibly future. We'll either win or Konoha won't have much of a chance if we lose." Hazashi and Kushina were tucked into bed by Naruto. Both children were aware that something was wrong, but they had been told repeatedly over the previous 2 weeks that it was something Daddy needed to do. Hinata clung to him tightly once he was in his own bed. To the best of his ability, he soothed her fears. He attended to other desires as they arose. The noises coming from Naruto's bedroom that night demonstrated that he had learned more than just ninja skills as Jiraiya's apprentice. The family gathered in the morning to say their final goodbyes. Kushina tried to smile for her father, but tears streamed down her cheeks. Naruto knelt, brushed her son's yellow hair away from her face, and hugged the girl. "I'll get back to you as soon as I can, sweetie." "Do you swear, Daddy?" Will the bad guy take you away again? In a low voice, she inquired. No, I will never let that happen as long as I am alive. Naruto turned to face Hisashi. Remember, if I don't return, you must track me down and beat me up for injuring your mother. Got it? The boy with dark hair smiled slightly. Naruto finally turned to Hinata. He kissed and hugged his wife tightly. I'll be right back. I guarantee it. Hinata slowly nodded. I intended to hold you accountable to that husband. After last night, I have a feeling these two might have a little brother or sister, and I expect you to be here for this one. Naruto smiled as he turned to leave. Tsunade and Kakashi were waiting at the gate. Tsunade was riding a large white stallion she had named Gallant, while Kakashi would tree run like Naruto. The trio departed Konoha quietly. Naruto made a remark about the horse. I suppose it's a good thing you didn't name him directly after Ero Sennin, Ba-chan. The old lecher would be preening with Kami up there if he found out you had your legs wrapped around a stallion named Jiraiya. Kakashi burst out laughing at the joke, and Tsunade kept his dignity intact by only blushing before responding. Oh, Gaki, be quiet. You and Hinata kept me awake for most of the night. Naruto simply smiled. The journey to the Valley of the End took the better part of a day. They camped out with a large encampment of Konoha ninja a few miles short of the rift. Scouts on the Fire Country side of the river reported seeing a large camp of sound forces on the opposite side of the river. Several small groups made their own way into the valley during the night to set up some equipment. Come dawn, the Leaf Ninja was in for a big surprise. Sasuke had several movie cameras brought in and set up around the valley's perimeter to record the fight. Naruto, Kakashi, and Tsunade appeared on the valley's fire countryside an hour after dawn. A scout on the other side gestured, and Sasuke appeared on his side within minutes. Both former teammates advanced to stand on the statues' heads, as they had done many years before. Sasuke had only recently learned that Naruto was severely scarred. He could now see his own work. The patchwork scars on one side of Naruto's face, combined with the melted burn scars on the other, made for a gruesome sight. But the blue eyes retained the same fire that had bothered the Uchiha for years. So you decided to show your face, or what's left of it. Naruto, I thought you'd be running the other way by now. Run? What about you? As if. You only beat me the last time because I let down my guard. I see you're still rocking the Orochimaru Jr. outfit. Uchiha, are you still hoping for your sugar daddy to untie your butt bow? Is it Naruto all the way to the end? I believe it is past time for us to resolve this. The entire world will see your failure in living color, Sasuke said, gesticulating. Before we begin, Uchiha, you must complete your side. Sakura, where are you? You agreed that win or lose, she would take the leaf side home. Always valiant, like your teacher, Naruto? Sasuke made a motion, and a snake slithered down into the valley, carrying a blanket-wrapped bundle. The snake approached Tsunade and Kakashi, and the ninja dropped the bundle on the ground before fleeing. Tsunade exclaimed as she lifted the blanket. Kakashi's eyebrows raised in horror. What exactly is it? Naruto inquired. Tsunade positioned herself between Sakura and Naruto so that he couldn't see her. She narrowed her eyes at Sasuke, who simply smirked and laughed like his own Sannin teacher. Naruto, just tear him to shreds, she raged in a husky voice. She then returned her gaze to the woman wrapped in a blanket. She summoned a slug to transport Sakura back to the camp. On the first, Sasuke leapt from the Madara statue towards Naruto. As Sasuke was about to land, Naruto blocked the first strike and countered with a leg sweep. Sasuke blocked, but Naruto appeared behind him, grabbing the rope belt and hurling the dark-haired man off the statue and down the waterfall's face. Naruto then jumped down and back down the cliff face, landing on the bank near where the Uchiha had collided with the water. Sasuke leapt from the water and attacked Naruto with taijutsu. The pair threw punches, kicks, and whatever else they could at each other, but both were able to defend against the onslaught of blows. They leapt back to the same spots where they had made their final attacks during Sasuke's defection. Naruto, you outperform my expectations. I might have to work harder, through his panting, Sasuke said. Don't be concerned, Uchiha. I'm only getting started. Naruto was panting as well. Naruto, you used to call me Teme or Sasuke all the time. What's the deal with Uchiha? Sasuke mocked. Because something took me a while to realize. Sasuke was a friend of mine, and addressing you as Teme was my way of showing you respect. Similarly to the old man, Ero Sennin and Ba-chan. You are now just another damned Uchiha. A thieving, lying traitor like the rest of your Kami-damned clan who should have been slaughtered along with the rest of the vermin. Sasuke's eyes narrowed at the mention of his clan. You'll pay for that insult, Naruto. Uchiha, bring it. Sasuke made the Chidori hand signs, but Naruto surprised him by throwing explosive-tagged kunai. Naruto ran up the side of the cliff to the larger lake above the waterfall, while the Uchiha avoided the explosion. Are you already running away, Naruto? Sasuke laughed. Naruto led Sasuke to the center of the lake and came to a halt. The scarred man assumed a stance that Sasuke had never seen before and waited. Sasuke stood there, his eyes trying to recognize and counter the style. Naruto stood motionless, the waves of the lake making him appear to bounce up and down. He's taking advantage of the lake's waves to confuse my Sharingan. Sasuke pondered. It doesn't matter, he can't stop me. I am invincible, and the world now knows it. Sasuke charged forward, his gaze fixed on Naruto. Still, the scarred man stood motionless until Sasuke approached him before acting too quickly for Sasuke to react. Naruto twisted his body to allow Sasuke's punch side through before countering with a devastating blow to the stomach. Sasuke's breath came to a halt as his diaphragm contracted. Naruto then delivered a hammer blow to the back of Sasuke's neck with both fists. Under the impact of the blow, Sasuke slid into the lake. Naruto grabbed the rope belt and took several steps away before swinging Sasuke around by it before the Uchiha vanished beneath the waves. After several spins, Sasuke was launched into the air, skipping across the water and landing on the shore. Sasuke rose to his feet and growled angrily. He was having a more difficult time dealing with this annoyance than he had anticipated. He did not fight at all like the Naruto he remembered. He had a unique taijutsu style. He had a different outlook. Most importantly, Sasuke realized Naruto wasn't just out to win. Naruto intended to harm him. Without his curse seal from the previous big fight, Sasuke was left with only his Mangekyo Sharingan. He didn't want to have to use his most powerful technique to defeat Naruto. It would be unprofessional. When Sasuke took over sound, he summoned the Kusanagi he had recovered. The legendary sword that Orochimaru used against Sarutobi should be able to defeat Naruto. Sasuke laughed as he waited for Naruto to arrive. Naruto was surprised at how well he had been doing up until now. Because of his new style and patience, he actually had an advantage over Sasuke in taijutsu. He realized that most of his losses to Sasuke were due to his habit of charging in headfirst, whereas Sasuke's style was based more on defense and reacting to attacks to counter them. The cameras around the valley had captured all of the action thus far, so he knew that even if he lost, people would see that Sasuke was not invincible. He approached the shore and drew a kunai to counter Sasuke's sword. When Sasuke saw Naruto with only a kunai against his sword, he laughed. "Do you want to die, Naruto? This sword is no match for that kunai. My sword ability does not extend to metal swords, Uchiha. Furthermore, why do you need such a large weapon for Uke-chan? I believe you are attempting to compensate for something." Before channeling lightning chakra into the blade and attacking, Sasuke growled. Naruto used his kunai to block the sword after charging it with air chakra. The scarred man deflected Sasuke's one-handed strike before sidestepping and allowing him to pass. Sasuke took a double-handed grip and launched another attack. Naruto smiled inwardly. Naruto seemed to anticipate Sasuke's reaction. He couldn't keep up his current pace for much longer. He was utilizing his chakra to increase his reaction times and strength. He was quickly wearing out with the Kyuubi chakra suppressed. He figured he only had about 5 minutes before collapsing or drawing on the demon's chakra. Naruto deflected the sword once more, but this time his free hand flared with chakra as he summoned a weapon. His right hand was gripping the worn leather grip of a smith's hammer. The 25-pound hammer was not intended for fighting, but it was the ideal tool for the job. He swung the hammer across Sasuke's forearm and was rewarded with a satisfying crunch as the radius and ulna both broke and bent under the strike. Sasuke had not prepared for such an attack because he had never seen or expected it. The Uchiha howled in pain and dropped the sword as he staggered back from a follow-up swing that, if connected, would have removed his head. Naruto kicked the Kusanagi into a pair of rocks, causing it to clatter. Despite his pain, Sasuke sneered as he saw Naruto lift the hammer. "You idiot, you can't break that sword with a regular hammer. What is made can be unmade, Uchiha," Naruto said quietly, blinking as his memory kicked in. Naruto examined the cage containing the Kyuubi. "Good day, Kitsune. What are you looking for, boy?" rumbled the voice. "You turned down my gifts and now you're asking for more?" "Kitsune, I know how draining it was to be locked away like that. Your enclosure is smaller. Your fur has turned maroon instead of red. You're now shackled to me. You'll be there when I'm gone. Nothing you do or attempt will change that. We were both changed by the years you were locked away. When our chakra was freed, you felt it. You had to abandon your previous attempt and release the chakra in a massive pulse felt throughout the elemental countries. My body can no longer handle large amounts of your chakra. We'd die if we drew on more than 2 tails. Despite everything you've done, I'd like to grant you a boon. What kind of favor could a monkey like you bestow on a demon like me? I'd like to give you the chance to demolish a legend. I want enough of your chakra infused into my master's old hammer to destroy the Kusanagi sword when the time comes. And you think this is a blessing? If I win, I will have history written to give you credit for its annihilation. That sword has killed many demons and defeated many kitsune in its time when it was in the hands of good men. I'm offering you the chance to destroy it and go down in history as the one who did it. Because it will be the Kyuubi no Kitsune's final known act before your death." A long pause followed. "You make an intriguing proposal, mortal. If the opportunity arises, I will take it. You've struck a deal, and you've amassed enough of my clout over the years to ensure that, like a kitsune, you'll keep your word." As an aura of chakra formed around the hammer, it glowed bright red. Naruto swung the hammer and struck. The legendary hammer collided with the legendary sword, causing both items to shatter into fragments. Naruto said something loud enough for the cameras to pick up on. So goes the Kyuubi no Kitsune's vengeance on the sword that killed so many of its kind. The demon I am imprisoning granted me the ability to destroy the legendary sword. My master, the innocent man you had killed for no reason, was struck by the hammer of Kama. The demon chuckled in its cage inside his head. Before falling asleep again, it thought, keeping his word with flair. The boy would have made an excellent kitsune. As he saw the legendary sword shatter, Sasuke erupted in rage. He prepared to fight, but his broken arm made it difficult to make the necessary hand signs. Naruto collapsed to his knees and began vomiting as a result of the demonic chakra in his system. Sasuke grinned ferociously and managed to elicit the Chidori signs. As he approached Naruto, lightning chakra gathered in his hand. I win, he exclaimed as he towered over Naruto. And you lost as well, Uchiha, Naruto said with his old foxy grin. Naruto sealed his hand and vanished in a flash of yellow light, reappearing in front of Kakashi and Tsunade. I concede the duel, Uchiha, because neither of us is in good enough shape to continue, Naruto yelled across the valley. I also consider it finished because you never said it was to the death. Sasuke erupted yet again. Kill them all. Sound forces raced over the valley edge where he was holding his arm and attacked. Kakashi helped Naruto to his feet and smiled as he remembered how hard the Hiraishin had worked to get the younger man out of danger. Are you alright, Naruto? Yeah, it took more chakra from the Kyuubi than I expected to shatter that sword. I was right on the edge of what would have killed me if I had to hold it for too long. I can recover from a flash through. Kakashi was taken aback by what Naruto said. In the past, the scarred man had never mentioned it. That explains why he's been so adamant about not using its chakra, Kakashi reasoned. It's not that he's afraid of losing control. It now poisons him like any other mortal. He was just being Naruto, with no one worrying about him. Prepare yourselves, boys. Our reinforcements are not as close to him as his are, Tsunade yelled as dozens of sound ninja closed in on them. Kakashi handed Naruto a food pill, which he gratefully accepted. Tsunade was in the back of the triangle formed by the three of them. As he exhaled, Naruto began the battle, muttering, Futen Daitapa. The wind gust pushed the ninja back on his side, preventing them from being overwhelmed. The sound ninja landed around the trio, who were all drawing weapons. Tsunade turned and swung her cane, aided by her increased strength, decapitating 3 people with a single swing. Kakashi completed the lengthy series of hand signs to create a water dragon that killed another half-dozen people. The rest of the sound ninja were wary after that, but they continued to attack. Tsunade recognized their adversary's face and hurled a fist-sized rock through his chest, muttering, damned traitor. Naruto was feeling better thanks to the food pill, and he summoned a half-dozen shadow clones to assist him as the ninja he had blown away charged at them again. The trio was surrounded as the enemy targeted Tsunade, whom they assumed was their weakest link. She caught everyone off guard when she was as quick as Naruto and Kakashi and swung her cane again, taking out 2 more enemies. Kakashi chuckled as he summoned a Reikiri and dispatched 3 more. Naruto's clones were more direct, simply breaking through the enemy's defenses and slicing their throats. He knew he didn't have any chakra left after the brief but intense battle with Sasuke. The food pill had given him the strength to create shadow clones, but it was quickly fading. When reinforcements from the camp arrived, the sound ninja were ready to strike once more. The stalemate quickly turned into a rout as the Konoha ninja showed no mercy to their foes. The cameras were continuously transmitting the signal. The video had been shown to the camp. The entire world witnessed everything, including Sakura's fate at the hands of the Sound Village. With several IV lines in her arms, the patient was sleeping quietly. The only thing that told anyone who saw her that she was Haruno Sakura was her tattered pink hair. Her features were sunken and severely malnourished. Anyone looking beneath the sheets would think they were looking at a skin-covered skeleton. It was a wonder she was still alive. The nurses who cared for the woman frequently wondered what was going on inside her head. They had run a full battery of medical tests, and there were many anomalies that they didn't want to think about until the woman was well enough to communicate with her caregivers. Tsunade walked out of the hospital, away from the ICU ward. She walked without assistance today. She was done pretending to be hampered by her leg injury. She'd been to the sand a month before Naruto's showdown with Uchiha. Elder Chiyo's work on prosthetics had reached new heights thanks to the medics there. Chiyo had used puppetry to manipulate her artificial arm as skillfully as a real one. In the time since Chiyo's death, the sand puppeteers and medics have advanced their work to fuse a prosthesis into a person's chakra network. The limb would function normally and carry chakra well enough to cast jutsu. Gaara had offered Tsunade the chance to have her severed limb replaced during his recent visit to Konoha. She was eager to take the risk. She had always felt guilty about her crippling injury. She had confronted Uchiha while drunk and paid the price. Tsunade, Shizune, and Sakura were the only 3 medics in Konoha who could reattach a limb at the time of her injury. Tsunade was unable to operate on herself. Shizune had been killed, and Sakura had gone missing as a result of the incident. She had to live with the loss of her leg for the rest of her life. Outside of Kakashi, she had gone into the recent battle at the Valley of the End with a pair of working legs. They needed every card in their favor to pull it off with no casualties. As she walked into the Hokage Tower, her thoughts were clear. One of her daughters had been kidnapped by the Uchiha. Then he severely injured the second. Tsunade didn't even blink when she imagined Shizune and Sakura as her daughters. She'd never had her own children, but both women had become as dear to her as a child of her own flesh would have been. She was over 64 years old now, but in terms of overall power and health, she could still compete with ninja in their 30s. Kakashi was preparing for Tsunade's arrival. Konoha's active forces members he trusted the most were present. Naruto sat in silence with his wife Hinata, holding hands. Guy and Lee were also sitting quietly. Shikamaru was thinking about plans to destroy sound but didn't get very far with them. As the elder arrived, several other ninja commanders sat waiting. Tsunade received a nod from Kakashi. Okay, let's get this planning session started. By now, everyone has seen Sakura's camera footage. Everyone who witnessed it is clearly upset. We must fight Sound aggressively while people are still stunned by it. Sound's allies will most likely reconsider their alliances with Uchiha, and a good victory over Sound could break them up. We're sticking to the last plan we devised before the duel. We're approaching 2 of Sound's original bunkers in Rice Country. Kakashi scowled at the commanders, Iruka and Guy. I have 2 desires. First and foremost, I desire total annihilation of the targets. Scored Earth. The second, and most important, is I don't want any hints of atrocities in our actions. There must be no civilian casualties and all prisoners must be treated fairly. If someone gives up, we accept it. There will be no assassination of surrendered enemies. There will be no killing of enemy wounded unless medical personnel do so as a result of their injuries. We currently have the moral upper hand, and we must use it wisely. This isn't about vengeance. Anyone who harms a prisoner will have their hands severed by me. Tsunade has agreed to assist the follow-up teams in dealing with prisoners and wounded from both sides. She will be in charge of that aspect of the operation. She can speak for Konoha as a former Hokage. The assembled ninjas nodded in agreement. "Tsunade is going to brief us on Sakura right now," Kakashi said quietly, motioning to the blonde woman. Tsunade looked around and saw steel in everyone's eyes. She started by opening a folder. "Sakura's condition is critical right now. She has been malnourished and starved for an extended period of time. We're starting with them. She has a few minor ailments as a result of her transport by sound and then by us to get her home. Those are also being treated. She is currently in a coma as her body attempts to heal. We'll let her sleep until she wakes up naturally, but we'll keep an eye on her. A full debrief will have to wait until she is well enough to speak with us. Other than her underfed state, a quick medical checkup reveals no illness or major physical abuse. Her pelvic region has some minor scarring, indicating that she has had at least one pregnancy to term and delivered via cesarean section." The last bit of information surprised everyone the most. Hinata lightly stroked Naruto's arm as he bristled at the news. Tsunade choked up and simply came to a halt and sat down. Kakashi stood up and looked around the crowd. "Go back to your units, and we'll strike in 48 hours. The commanders returned to the front lines. Konoha and Sand Ninja strike groups were supplemented by ninja from minor villages. The Star, Waterfall, and Haze ninjas appeared nervous, but the commanders took their time briefing each group. A trio of Demon Country medics collaborated with the Land of Birds medics. They were all waiting for the signal. Moon Village scouts indicated that they were prepared. It all started by chance. A Konoha genin carrying supplies for the cook had tripped and fallen near a grove of sakura trees. He sighed softly as he noticed the trees. Tsunade's apprentice had always stood out in Konoha, with her pink hair and friendly demeanor. He had even met her as a child while she was working in the hospital. He stood up and brushed the flour off his clothes before bandaging his scraped hand. His pants were stained pink from the flour and blood. When the young teen noticed the smear, he returned to work in the camp kitchen. Pink, wonderful, he thought until the color drew his attention back to the medic. He became enraged after seeing the video of her condition during the valley battle. He wanted to go help, but genin were only allowed to go as far as the camp and support roles. He hurried back to the fallen flower with some water and red food coloring after having an epiphany. The water was combined with the flour to form a paste. He added the food coloring drop by drop while stirring until it was close to the color he remembered Sakura's hair being. The head chef appeared just as he was about to finish. "Get back to work, lazy genin," yelled the man. The teen just kept mixing until it reached the desired consistency. He dipped his fingers into the pink mixture and dragged them across his forehead protector as if they were finger paint. "I can't fight for her, but I will show my support for Sakura," declared the genin. The cook raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything else. The other genin in the kitchen area heard and saw what the one had said, and they too applied the pink paste to their forehead protectors. People attending the dinner noticed and heard about what the teen had done, so they added their own pink line. It spread as quickly as word could travel throughout the camp and beyond. Ninja on the side of the leaf were painting their forehead protectors cherry blossom pink one by one. The crusade had started. The noon sun scorched the guards. They were exhausted from working long shifts on alert. They had received word that the Leaf forces were planning an attack, but the alert lasted all night with no attack. After a night of little sleep, the guards were exhausted by the heat of the day. When one heard something in the brush and turned to look, he was greeted with a kunai to the throat. The sound guard died silently. Water Kitsune motioned to his teammates. They approached the guard post in silence. Iruka will always be the kunai throwing champion, Naruto thought behind his mask. Only 10-10 could give the former teacher a run at target throwing accuracy. Air Kitsune dashed to the bottom of the stairs and peered inside. The long corridor sank deeper into the hillside. He made a half-dozen shadow clones and passed the paper charges to them. After Air Kitsune activated the explosives with his chakra, the clones bolted down the corridor. The clones dispersed after each note was placed on a support beam in the hall, returning their memories and a large portion of their chakra to the original. Naruto had learned more about how his chakra moved within the shadow clones thanks to the sage techniques than most people realized. The reason for the return of memories was that some of the chakra did as well. That's why a nature chakra charged clone sent its collected chakra to Naruto. The more he focused his normal chakra on the shadow clone technique, the more he recovered. A self-distributed clone returned far more chakra than a forced dispersal. There was always some loss, but the more he practiced the technique, the more chakra Naruto was able to recoup after a clone vanished on his own. The demolition charges exploded, causing the tunnel to collapse. Other teams blew up other exits to the bunker in sequence until there was only one way in or out of the bunker. The sound forces trapped inside waited for word from the army outside. Many people took the call to surrender or die seriously, but few were willing to put the Leaf's kindness to the test. Uchiha's hardcore followers slaughtered anyone within their ranks who called for surrender. The others were wise enough to keep their mouths shut. The Sound Ninja forced their way down the last remaining exit to the sunlight, where they were met with a firestorm. Few survived, but those who did and surrendered were treated according to Kakashi's orders. The Leaf Alliance forces stormed into Team Kitsune's bunker. The few remaining holdouts were either killed or captured. Salvage teams were sent in to recover any useful supplies and documents that could be found. Charges were set and wires were run back to the entrance by demolition teams. The rest of the bunker collapsed from within 2 hours after the first explosions. Guy and Lee made their way up to the guard post of another bunker, which was about 20 miles away. "Will you surrender?" Lee asked quietly. The Sound Chunin chuckled at the Konoha Jonin. Lee had replaced the previous black cloth at his waist with a pink cloth. No," the sound guard said. Lee nodded and moved faster than the guard could keep up with him. Before he could feel anything else, pain flooded his nose. Lee had shattered his nose and driven the fragments back into the Chunin's brain with a single punch. "Will you surrender?" Guy inquired of the other guard. The guard nodded meekly before being knocked out with a chop to the neck. Guy and Lee entered the base. The survivors would only say that Lee and Guy would never ask someone to surrender twice. Jutsu was moved around or battered down without regard, and the casters were struck down mercilessly. Those who surrendered were rendered unconscious and later executed by teams operating behind Lee and Guy. Later, the Jonin sat outside as the sun set in front of them. Guy stood guard while Lee just stared at it and cried. The younger man spoke quietly. "Naruto-kun was correct. Fires can be rekindled, but I fear mine will be out for a long time before that day arrives, Guy-sensei. Revenge is not a feeling associated with youth. I pushed it back and followed Hokage instructions. Sama's there was no killing of those who surrendered, but I couldn't show mercy to those who refused. I hope Sakura-chan will forgive my frailty." Guy simply nodded to his student and companion. He, too, had been tempted to simply destroy anything related to the sound, but he, like Lee, saw the cost as being too high. The pair would be without their fires for some time, but they had kept their souls intact in the process. As the bunker caved in, deep underground rumbles of explosives could be heard. Uchiha Sasuke was furious. His medics quickly healed his arm, but his forces suffered massive losses. The leaf and its allies were pressing from every angle. The rain and grass had ended their alliance with sound after cameras broadcast images of the pink-haired harpy around the world. His forces in those countries were escorted to the borders and then dismissed quietly. He'd heard that both nations had declared non-aggression in the fighting, joining the Rock, Mist, and Cloud. His plans to humiliate Naruto before the world was destroyed had backfired, leaving him embarrassed. He'd seen his legendary sword destroyed in front of him, and the blonde had simply fled. The last advisor to tell him he'd made a mistake was no longer alive. The survivors only told him what he wanted to hear. He couldn't keep his rage from anyone, and few people survived his presence. This was not supposed to happen, Sasuke thought. I was supposed to have beaten Konoha to a pulp years ago. They should have given up without Naruto. By now, I should be in command of one of the major villages. They now have the pink harpy to rally around. He growled even louder as he was forced to admit he had made mistakes he couldn't blame on anyone else. He needed to change his strategy before everything fell apart and his revenge on Konoha was thwarted. A message from one of his village's minorities gave him a new idea. From the front, Kakashi summoned everyone who had previously been close to Sakura. The woman had stabilized and appeared to be about to awaken. In the 2 weeks since her sound recovery, the medics had managed to put some weight on her. She was still severely underweight and lacked muscle mass, but her face had lost its gaunt appearance. Jade green eyes gradually opened into the light. Light shone down on her face. She was finally free, and she was in the afterlife. Hands that could barely move shook slightly, only to fall back down as the light restraints on them prevented any further movement. She had hoped she had died when the light entered her brain, but now she realized they had drawn her back again. Why couldn't those animals just leave her to die? Sakura forced open one eye and noticed the light she had seen was not a sign of the afterlife at all. That's different. I haven't seen the sun since. Her thoughts became disjointed as the pain of the memory returned. Why was Sasuke torturing her in this way? The sound of a nearby voice drew her attention. It was strangely familiar and yet strangely different. The accents were familiar to her, but she hadn't heard them in a long time. She forced her eye open again and cocked her head slightly. There were flowers between her and the voice. Flowers? Flowers are not permitted by Sasuke. What exactly is going on here? Is this some new form of torture? She wondered. As she tried to focus, the second eye slowly opened and joined the first. Those flower bouquets remind me of ones Ino's mother used to make when we were kids. Why did they have to kill you, Ino? This time, the voice came from closer. That can't be. Tsunade's voice was heard. A tear fell from her eye as she realized Sasuke had put her into another genjutsu. She didn't have enough chakra to break even the most basic one right now. His method of torturing her was to make her believe she had been rescued, only to break it and leave her wallowing in the darkness once more. Her thoughts caused her heart to race, triggering an alarm on her heart monitor. The voices grew closer, and Sakura noticed someone she didn't recognize. Oh, you've woken up. I'll go find Tsunade-sama. As she rushed away, the nurse said. The curtain was pushed back seconds later, revealing a concerned Tsunade staring at her. Sakura cringed back, not wanting to feel the pain of seeing her teacher again. She attempted to defend herself by raising her bone-thin arms, but the padded restraints on her arms prevented her from doing so. Sakura whimperingly closed her eyes. Tsunade was taken aback by the pink-haired woman's reaction. She realized there was something wrong and summoned the first nurse. Did she react this way to you? Tsunade-sama, no. She just stared at me, the nurse responded. Tsunade returned his attention to Sakura and said softly, "Sakura, you can rest easy now. Uchiha let you go so that Naruto would have to fight him." Sakura simply closed her eyes and shook her head slowly, "No. Sasuke, leave me alone. Please free me from this genjutsu," she screamed. Tsunade took a step back when she heard that. For a brief moment, she frowned before motioning the nurse Sakura didn't know forward to assist the pink-haired woman. "Speak to her and try to calm her down. If she has previously been tortured by seeing old friends, you should be more of a comfort than I am right now," Tsunade elaborated. The nurse nodded and moved closer to the terrified woman, speaking softly to calm her down. "Sakura, don't worry. If you don't want to see Tsunade right now, she will avoid you. Is there anyone in particular you'd like to see?" she inquired softly. "Why is he torturing me in this manner? What he does is bad enough, but why not just let me die? Why keep bringing me back and making me believe I'm being rescued only to toss me back into that hole?" Sakura sobbed. The nurse was on the verge of crying. She had been a fan of Uchiha Sasuke in her youth, and hearing Sakura's broken whimpers shattered the last illusion she had about anyone named Uchiha. The first two bunker victories were not replicated. An assault on a third was repulsed, resulting in heavy casualties for the Alliance. The presence of sound forces on their home turf made a significant difference in the fighting. The war had come to a halt yet again, with Sound holding firm and slowly pushing back toward their border. The battles were beginning to resemble old-fashioned battles between armies of thousands rather than a war between ninja. Neither side advanced nor retreated, with ninja seen standing on opposite sides of an open field, just recovering from previous battles before fighting again. So far, Sakura's friends have been barred from seeing her. This irritated them all greatly. One finally had enough and walked to the hospital. Nurses tried to stop him, but he ignored them. Outside the intensive care unit, a single Anbu stood guard. The ninja approached the masked man and informed him of his desire to see Sakura. The Jonin's ultimatum of move or be moved was unexpected, but the Anbu took it seriously enough. The masked operative was rendered unconscious and gently lowered to the floor before he could defend himself. The Jonin called for a nurse to attend to the man. Sakura heard a soft noise outside the curtains, followed by nurses saying, "You're not supposed to be in here." She closed her eyes to protect herself from the tortures. Footsteps on the floor grew closer as the curtains were drawn back. As the footsteps approached the bed, Sakura flinched back, and a soft voice said, "Sakura-chan." The pink-haired woman shuddered as she heard the voice and responded, despite herself, "Lee-kun. Why did he have to torture me again with you? Please, Sakura-chan, have enough faith in me to trust your eyes and heart," Lee said softly. Her right wrist was being released from the restraint that was holding it. A warm calloused hand slid into it, holding her hand firmly but gently. "It feels so real," she reflected. "Sakura-chan, I'm not sure what I can say will persuade you of what's going on. But I know I can delegate some authority to you. Please, open your eyes," Lee muttered. Sakura picked up on something in his voice. The tone reminded her of something she hadn't heard since Sasuke had kidnapped her. A slight beseeching tone mixed with hope, which Sasuke could never quite get right in all of his attempts to torture her mind. She slowly opened one eye to see Rock Lee's round eyes and concerned face at the side of her bed. His Jonin uniform, as well as his longer hair, seemed out of place to her. But those brows remained as large and wild as ever. They had only been groomed once, when she told the man she wouldn't go out with him unless he trimmed them. When he returned an hour later with his brows trimmed, she was overjoyed, but something about Lee was missing with normal-looking brows. She'd never asked him to do anything like that for her again. "Will you trust me, Sakura-chan?" Lee whispered as he pressed his face against the pink woman's. Sakura couldn't help but nod, fearful that the mere sight of this man would result in yet another round of torture. "I want you to hit me if you believe in me. Smack me across the face as hard as you can." Lee spoke a little louder. Sakura shrugged her shoulders. "This was a first for me." Sasuke's previous genjutsu had not allowed her to hit anyone she cared about. She slowly lifted her free hand and lightly tapped Lee on the cheek. "Again," he said emphatically. Her hand came up again, and this time she barely touched him. "Sakura-chan, please. Hit me with everything you've got. I know it's not much right now, but I need you to believe in your freedom. Please strike me again." He reached over and untied her left arm from its shackle. Sakura bit her lower lip. She desperately wanted to believe this was her Lee. But it was yet another forgery. It had to be that way. "Damn you, Sasuke," she thought as she raised her arm and slapped Lee across the face. This time, the sound was clearly audible. "Once more, Sakura-chan," Lee insisted. Sakura's eyes welled up with tears as she swung again and again, slapping Lee harder each time, his hand throbbing with pain and his face bruising. "Why? Why does he keep me in this nightmare?" she screamed. "He isn't, Sakura-chan," Lee said quietly again. "Yes, you are." Sakura said softly, "My hand hurts," before realizing. "It stings. I'd never been hurt before in any of the torture sessions Sasuke forced me to witness." She looked deeply into Lee's eyes before turning her attention to the bruised cheek. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I would gladly take 1,000 blows to persuade you that you are free. If I can't do that, I'll find another way to persuade you. But most importantly, I still love you and hope you still love me." Sakura burst into tears because she couldn't take it any longer. She didn't care if this was some kind of torture attempt or if she was finally free. She was face to face with her Lee, and she would not let this opportunity pass her by. Her hands slid behind his head, drawing his face to hers. His lips gently touched hers at first, until she couldn't hold back any longer. She kissed him with a passion she hadn't felt in many years, and he responded until she slid her head to one side and buried her face in his neck, her arms tight around him. She simply held Lee until the tears stopped. "Am I truly free?" she asked into his ear. "Sakura-chan, you are correct. At long last." Tsunade stepped back and slowly closed the curtains behind the couple. The nurse looked to her for guidance. The former Hokage returned his gaze and spoke. "I have a few things to take care of. When he's finished in there, make her more presentable. That will appeal to her. I need to go tell Kakashi to be gentle with Lee after he hit that Anbu." She then shook her head and smiled broadly. "I also have to inform everyone that Wesley and Buttercup have been pushed to second place for Best Kiss." The nurse was stunned for a moment until she realized the joke, at which point she burst out laughing and resumed her duties. Pink paint became more popular among Alliance ninjas. Non-leaf ninja were more likely to see forehead protectors or a simple square of cloth, but everyone had been exposed to the idea at least once. Infiltrators were much easier to catch because they stood out for the first hour or two after entering camps. As their drive to push back the Alliance failed, Sound began to lose battles. Another week has passed, and another pair of Sound bunkers have fallen. Both sides suffered heavy losses, but the Alliance now had more troops. Cloud, Mist, and Rock all declared that they would no longer trade with Sound. Rain and Grass soon followed. There were too many small nations united against Sound and in support of Konoha and Suna for the other powers to ignore. After the war with Sound was over, the three major nations would wait for the alliance to disband. It had occurred in previous wars and would occur again. It made no sense to alienate the majority of the minor powers all at once. Kakashi devised a suitable punishment for Lee. For 12 hours a day, he had to be Sakura's new bodyguard. For the first time since the war began, Lee smiled like a teenager. Tsunade asked Kakashi to postpone Sakura's debriefing for another week so she could adjust to her newfound freedom. Kakashi agreed because she would not have been exposed to vital military secrets otherwise. While in Konoha, Naruto summoned Pa and obtained permission to train in the sage arts. To assist the blonde, Gamakichi arrived with a barrel of toad oil and Pa stick. To remain discreet, the boss Toad's son used a size reduction jutsu taught to him by Pa. Naruto's sealed scroll room became a tiny training chamber as he relearned how to draw in nature chakra. Gamakichi had fun whacking Naruto a few times, but the Toad Sage was up to the task after that. Tsunade's request for a week later resulted in the reunion of the Konoha 11. It was time to speak with Sakura.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.